Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gilda Wiyaka.
This is Mission Evolution, and I'm Gilda Wiyaka. Today, we welcome a remarkable guest whose life's work unfolds the powerful spaces where transformation begins. Sande Hart is an award-winning author, humanitarian, visionary, women's empowerment advocate, and founder of Global Women's Village, an interfaith organization dedicated to compassion, collaboration, and community healing. Sande's also the author of the celebrated book, The Liminal Odyssey, the alchemical power of the spaces in between, exploring the alchemical force found in the in-between spaces of our lives. These thresholds, where identity shifts consciousness, expands, and destiny unfolds. Her leadership in establishing California as the world's first compassionate state has positioned her as a global catalyst for positive social evolution. In her work as a futurist, spiritual activist, and community builder, Sande teaches us to honor the unseen, embrace uncertainty, and use liminal space as a gateway to personal and collective evolution. Sande, thanks for joining us on Mission Evolution.
I am so happy to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
It's just a real pleasure. I'm so looking forward to working with you today.
Yeah.
So, Sande, what first inspired your lifelong work with the liminal?
Oh, well, it started long before I even understood what the word liminal meant. It was a tongue twister for me, but I'd always been really curious about people. And I was raised in a rather rigid home. I wasn't raised with a lot of confidence or, an environment that really fostered evolutionary growth. And that was very much due to the cons. My parents were much older than me. I'm much older than the average parent. And also, it was necessary for who I was. I had to go through the difficult experiences and some trauma to really know that this was a catalyst for me to start asking different questions. And I was always asking people where they were from. And, I was always asking to get invited into people's homes because I wanted to know what it smelled like. And I wanted to know what kind of foods they ate. And I wanted to understand what was on the walls and what that meant to them. So I was always interested in what motivated people, really, is what it was. And so the morning of 9/11, I woke up completely rewired from the director of sales and marketing of, who I was the night before 9/11. And I heard Gather Women. And I'm like, oh, who's saying this to me? And where am I supposed to find these women? And what am I supposed to do with them once I find them? But I said yes. And before I knew it, I had 12 women from the faith communities, because this is what was going on in my county, were these conversations of different faiths coming together to address the tolerance in the community. And that's where I found the women. So we were just naturally interfaithful when we gathered. So we called ourselves the Mother of All Nations, known as S.A.R.A.H. And then 20 years later, we realized it was time to change and became the Global Women's Village. We're not interfaithful anymore, but it's very much part of our DNA. To answer your question about the liminal space, it was always in those liminal spaces that I've accomplished anything. And everything I have done was a creative spark. So there was no state of compassion before. Now California is a state of compassion. There was no women's organization that looked anything like us. And now we became the world's largest and, grassroots interfaith organization. There was nothing like any of the initiatives that I have ever, brought forth or led further. And so I came to realize that all of that happened in these spaces, but I didn't have a framework for it until I heard this word liminal that meant threshold. So I discovered it's really what I'm doing in those spaces in between, dilemma and choice, crisis and action, hearing something that catalyzed me into what am I going to do next with this? I wasn't just happy sitting there and letting it pass by me. So that is that liminal space is what informs me of what the next thing to do is. Slowing down, asking the question, what wants to happen here, and then doing it.
Now that's fascinating. So, how do your roles as a mother, grandmother, author, and community leader shape your perspective on social change?
100%. First of all, becoming a mother changes everything, because now you see the world through the lens of how it's impacting my child, how I'm impacting my child. What am I contributing to in the world? Where is my dollar going? Who am I supporting? What corporation am I feeding? And so it changed everything for me at some cellular level. I really didn't come to understand that until I've been doing this study, which is really more intense in the last 5 years. And I'm like, okay, that is what was driving me to always show up into different spaces where my kids. Interfaith, oh gosh, well, the beauty of interfaith community building is that you get to learn about all these different traditions and pathways, which really do more for deepening the roots of your own tradition and belief system. And so the interfaith, adding that, into the mix, into the cauldron that was stirred up, being a mother and seeing the world through that archetypal understanding of who I was as a mother, and also becoming more connected to the child, to the maiden in me. If you're looking at these archetypal identities of maiden, mother, crone. And so these perspectives have changed over the years as I grow into that crone, into that wisdom of being a woman. And so all of these understandings every day evolve my belief system and my fiber and rearrange the DNA every day, because I'm learning different things every day.
Never a dull moment then, huh?
Never a dull moment.
What motivated you to create Global Women's Village, and how has it evolved?
So the Global Women's Village the reason why it transformed, when we knew this is what the name and the destiny of what S.A.R.A.H would become, which is the mother of all nations. That's what we called her, S.A.R.A.H, the Spiritual and Religious Alliance for Hope, that, soon after 9/11, when we were all convening. And then in 2023, I found myself back on the Women's Task Force for the Parliament of the World's Religions, which is the world's largest convening of clergy, theologians, seekers, environmentalists, social impact, organizers, safety net organizations, everyone who really focuses on their highest and deepest value system to heal our world from whatever perspective, with all these different tracks of programming and workshops, 400 workshops, plenaries, observances of other people's rituals, and interactive and engagement and experiences for a whole week. 8,000 to 10,000 people come from 80 different countries around the world. Imagine walking the halls, everyone in their regalia and their different languages, and it's just heaven on earth, really. And so, having been on the task force before, and also having been to the parliaments, because they're every few years, going back to 2009 at Melbourne, Australia's parliament, I started noticing women, and I wasn't alone, that women have very little room in that space over the course of the week. And then we get this women's task force in 2015, and the privilege to have 40 of those 400 workshops dedicated to the topic of women, the dignity of women, women's empowerment, women in, impressing culture, all different, ways of conversing on the topic of women. But even that wasn't enough. Come 2023, I just raised my hand and said, how about we create a space within the Parliament of the World's Religions, right in the middle of the world's religions, and call it the Women's Village, and design it for everyone, but by women, in the design of the divine feminine, if you will. We had an earth altar, we had a mother tree, we had a water fountain, we had circles for dialogue, spontaneous dialogues. We had what we call a red tent room, where you could go in and close the door and it was a sacred space. Women might just want to sit in silence. We also did a lot of very loud programming in there. We had all kinds of these different fixtures, but women were coming up to us all week and saying, I feel safe here. The air is different in here. We were solving problems differently, and we were coming up with real critical solutions to real old problems. We were doing this work in a different way, in circle, really. We were doing it differently. Men were coming in and engaging too. It's for men too. Yet when women plan, when women design, when women organize, we have a different way. And our solutions are swift and sustainable. And this all came to light and kind of came right into focus while standing in the middle of the Women's Village. And I'm like, I know what's next for S.A.R.A.H. And here we became the Global Women's Village, focusing on women futuring a new paradigm.
So how did you help cultivate California as the first official compassionate state in the world?
Well, long before everything I just shared with you, Compassionate California happened. I was on the volunteer staff of the Charter for Compassion International, which is a global organization that at the time was really focused on creating cities of compassion. And that means bringing together not only civic leaders, but also social impact, organizations and safety net organizations like the food bank and the domestic violence shelters and youth programming, and bringing together the Department of Education and teachers, bringing together grassroots, and of course also the interfaith community and all kinds of, all the stakeholders of a community. We got together in one room and we said, can we all agree to these 4 basic, very elegant, very simple paragraphs that are known as the Charter for Compassion, which really reminds us to come down to the golden rule: treat others as you treat themselves. But really, how do we solve problems? How do we communicate? How do we build community in a compassionate way? And when it comes from all these different sectors, because we are all interrelated, interconnected, and mutually beneficial when we do solve our problems collectively, then I'm not creating a solution for the environmental community that is wrecking another community, right? How do we work this out in this room? And that's what a city of
Sandy, I'm sorry, it's time. We're going to have to take a station break. Sandy and I will return very shortly, so don't you go away. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org.
Are you ready for a tale that will leave you on the edge of your seat? Get ready to dive into the gripping memoir by Bart Sibrel titled Moon Man. Bart Sibrel takes you on a heart-pounding journey, unmasking the truth behind America's famous Apollo missions. Prepare yourself for hair-raising encounters with agents from the U.S. government's top secret agencies. In Moonman, Sibrel fearlessly reveals his real-life espionage adventures, shining a light on one of the CIA's best-kept secrets. Brace yourself for shocking revelations, including Sibrel's discovery of privately recorded audio exposing an Apollo astronaut's chilling plot, a plot orchestrated by the CIA. That's right. As S.A.R.A.H unveils its groundbreaking evidence, it becomes clear that there is much more to the Apollo missions than meets the eye. Could it be that we've been deceived all along? Moonman is a gripping page-turner that challenges everything you thought you knew. It's a mind-bending journey into the unknown, where the line between truth and fiction becomes blurred. Don't miss this opportunity to uncover the secrets hidden for decades. Let your curiosity guide you as you join Bart S.A.R.A.H on his quest to find the truth. Moonman, available now at Sibrel.com. That's Sibrel.com. Prepare to have your beliefs shaken to the very core.
Is feminine wisdom a superpower? With us this hour discussing feminine leadership is Sande Hart, the author of the Liminal Odyssey, An Alchemical Power of the Spaces in Between. Sande, how has feminine wisdom influenced your interfaith and community building efforts?
Oh, it's everything because it's wired in me as it is in every woman. And I've only recently learned how to utilize it, how to honor it and have reverence for it, and then listen to it. That's the big one. How many times do we get a nudge or a pang or our throat tightens up or our heart lights up or it tightens? That's feminine wisdom. That's our body talking to us. We are not separate from our body. And that was a big revelation for discovery for me. And it shows up in my body.
Lets you know right away.
Without a doubt, I can always count on it. It's like my BFF.
Can you share an example of a time when you identified a gap in a system and turned it to an opportunity for change?
Oh, yes. All the time. As a matter of fact, here's one. Here's one. It's like picking your favorite child, right? I was on a call co-hosting a panel. And it was at the Charter for Compassion, actually. I was with someone at a department at the UN. It doesn't matter who they were. And I asked the question, because we were talking about the Sustainable Development Goals, these 18 goals that are designed to mark critical change across all these different critical issues on our planet. And so I asked them, why is it taking so long to achieve these goals? Why is it taking so long for the United Nations to accomplish these goals? I mean, there are markers, there's improvements, but it's been 15 years. Why so long? And the response woke me up. He said, good policy requires good people. And most people are not even conscious of the choices they make while sitting in their seat at the United Nations. I mean, they're consciously considering everything, but are we truly living it in that way? So this is not to disparage the United Nations because they do remarkable work, but it's not fast enough when you have the resources the United Nations has. And so that led me to thinking about, I beg your pardon, there are 17 goals. I thought of an 18th, a personal responsibility and self-agency. What if we had an 18th goal that threaded through every single one of those to remind everyone working on any one of those goals to really stop and think about what's my personal responsibility and my self-agency in addressing issues. And brings it right down to the personal. It got traction, and it was never intended to really get designated as an 18th goal. I mean, this is a big system, a big machine. It was really a grassroots effort to grab the imagination of people, and it made a lot of, it had a lot of traction. It got places, but I realized that it was much more than I could manage, and it eventually went away. But the intention there was that. The other and that is, and this came from a challenge. Being an interfaith organization, we were, there was a contest coming up. And that contest for this global organization that we are a part of was called the United Religions Initiative, was to come up with a project that exemplified our collective vision, which is at the URI, the United Religions Initiative, the principle and preamble of the United Religions Initiative, which are these universal goals that we all want to reach, you know, ultimately ending up with everyone living the golden rule. Do unto others as you will have done unto yourself. And so immediately it dawned on me what our project should be, that we wanted to present and submit as a prize-winning award submission. And because we'd done panel discussions, we'd convened the community in circle. We have spoken on podiums across all the different faith traditions at the universities, at every university in Orange County. We've done programming on campus at a number of them for nearly 10 years at the time. But what weren't we doing? We weren't reaching the critical mass of our community. What will people show up for? They will show up for community service. So I convened my circle and we created the Weekend of Community Service, Interfaith Weekend of Community Service, where we cross-pollinated our different faith traditions to go out and do service together. Now that was 10 years ago. That was at least 10 years ago because we did it for 7 years. And, and we won the award. You're actually looking at it. At the top, the one up there. And we got to accept it in India. That was our prize. We've received a cash award plus this trip to India to receive it, a global assembly. At any rate, the impact from that was so profound that a mosque and a synagogue that would never step into one another's place of worship got together, and now they, to this day, still sponsor a homeless transition home for families. It is. So that's just one of the, impacts from the work that we have done. But, taking a problem, what aren't we doing, and finding, stopping in that liminal space and asking what aren't we doing? What questions aren't we asking? And that's where we came up with that. And by the way, we still have that money in our account. We don't really do a lot to spend money here. So, and that was 10 years ago.
So what global shift do you believe is necessary for women to move into equal leadership roles?
Thank you for asking that question. It's absolutely about remembering who we are. And ask ourselves, how am I perpetuating the system? Where is my dollar going? How am I treating my sister? Am I wounded? Do I have the sister wound? Do I have some trauma that could be addressed? And how am I living that? We fundamentally believe that women are the answer to all of humanity's issues right now. And what about the men? We need our men. We need our partners. We can't fly. We need the two wings of the bird to be in balance. But sometimes you want to turn a corner, you want to change directions, you got to shift which wing is up here and which wing is going to be taken care of down here. And so what we know that when we do our work, everyone is healed. And that's what happened at the Women's Village at the Parliament. Everyone was welcome into the space. We didn't do it just for ourselves, but we did it through how women heal, how women solve problems, how women design.
So what is liminality?
Liminal means threshold. Liminality means what we do in that space.
And how does the concept of liminality relate to expanded consciousness and spiritual awakening?
I think it's everything. It's where we start. It's where we can slow down to the speed of awe and wonder, right? This is just standard, fundamental. That should be the default. Awe and wonder. Because when you're in wonder, you're in curiosity, right? And when you're in curiosity, there's not a lot of room for vulnerability or fear. And fear is usually what keeps us in place. That's why we continue. We might be spiraling as an evolution, but we keep coming back around because I think this is great spirit, God, however you want to identify whatever force is moving through us, which is not, I can't even find a name. There is no name for it, that which cannot be named. It continues to put this back in front of us. Look at the conditions in the United States right now. How is it so fragile that so much is getting rolled back and so many are agreeing to it? How is that possible? We haven't learned. We haven't asked the right questions. And that's what we're in search of. That we're in search of the right answers.
But first you have to have the right questions.
And that happens in the liminal space. When we quiet and realize, and just realize with real eyes. Turn on your inside eyes, your internal eyes, your inner eye. And what haven't we been asking? Get real. We have to go gentle on ourselves, but we get to be real with ourselves in that space. And that's when I discovered this one chapter. I thought I was writing for the Liminal Odyssey. It turned out to be 11 or 12 chapters. And I say 11 or 12 because the 12th is barely a chapter, but it's packs a punch, if you will. And it basically unfolded because I started slowing down in that space and thinking about, what does the story really mean that happened to me in my life? What I thought was a mundane experience, kind of cool mundane experience, but a mundane experience. What was happening there? And oh my gosh, wait, there's another story. Suddenly all these stories started just like rolling out of me, each with, anchored with a methodology or a mythology or a philosophy or some science that in some quantum science as well, that really made sense of what was going on in that story. And then I started seeing a web develop, and that web then became my safety net. So when we do this, when we write our stories, we start seeing not only how they are not mundane, they are some juicy, full stories worth writing. We can start saying what was alive in me, what was going on in that moment. And that's our gift. That makes up all of our beautiful parts. The wounds, the scars, the joys, all of our parts are beautiful when we can take the time and on wonder in the liminal space to see them.
So what does it mean to call yourself a woman futurer?
To future a new paradigm is to know that we're doing our work, but we're looking into the future. I should say, and we are looking into the future, right? We're keeping our eye on what's ahead of us. And three rules of futuring: there's no blaming, there's no shaming, there's no victimizing, right? When my 5-year-old child at the time threw a fit and treated me poorly, I didn't carry that on. I'm like, wait, I'm the mother here. I see what's going on. I'm here to love you back into wholeness. And that's what women who future do. We recognize our roles and responsibility as the biological woman who flows in the same system as the moon, who bleeds just like the rivers flow. And when we stop that and we move into our crone, that blood stays in our womb to nurture our wisdom. So when we see the nature of who we are and honor it with reverence, then we will move this needle.
A lot of your, we're about out of time in this segment, but I notice you use, I assume, a lot of ceremony in what you do.
I do. And I've never thought of myself as a ceremonious person. I love ceremony. I'm Jewish. And being Jewish, there's ritual in a lot. We light the candles. There are certain things that sanctify that moment. So if ceremony means lighting a candle, right? And keeping water and having something to smell that's pleasurable.
Well, unfortunately, we're going to have to talk about ceremony on the other side of a station break. Sandy and I will be right back to continue our discussion. Please stay right there. This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org.
NASA has confirmed that they have evidence of life beyond Earth.
This discovery is confirmed.
Well, let's see, we've had visitors again. Yeah. Anything worth mentioning?
I filmed 16 minutes on March 5th, 1994, 16 minutes of broad daylight UFO activity.
The other side, the spirit realm, is a parallel dimension which which coexists with ours. And what spirits are doing is they're sending waves of frequency from that dimension to ours.
The government instituted the truth embargo. The government poured disinformation and misinformation into this field, encouraging hoaxes and any other foolishness. It created a truth vacuum that naturally was going to be filled with theories and assertions and other stuff.
The oil oligarchs and the banks and the people who are making decisions that are leading us down the wrong path.
They've undermined the research, intimidated and threatened witnesses. The government is responsible for the fact that the status of this issue is not resolved.
I'm Rob McConnell, host and executive producer of the X-Zone radio show. Now we are set to bring the amazing world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology to broadcast TV and online video with the development of X-Zone TV. X-Zone TV will now bring our loyal listeners and new viewers face to face with the most controversial and well-known personalities in the field of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology. From scientists to theorists, astronauts to adventurers, celebrities, pundits, advocates, and naysayers, they'll all join our rapid-fire TV broadcast, interactive discussion, and debate. Interest in the paranormal and parapsychology has never been more intense, and it continues to grow. The truth is out there, so take a deep breath and join us as we step into the light. For more information about X-Zone TV, please contact me, Rob McConnell, directly at these coordinates, Rob McConnell at xzonetv.com.
What are the in-between spaces? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. With us discussing the power of liminal space is Sande Hart. Her website, sandehart.com. Sande, we were talking a little bit about ceremony, and through what you've said to me so far, I see whiffs of, if you will, the aroma of various different cultural ceremonies, from Native American, you're talking about the red tent or the red lodge, to all sorts of different ones. Have you drawn on all different traditions, and is that giving you the power to sit in the center of that liminal space?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, ceremony brings us back to who we are. It engages our body. It brings us our body to the table when we're in that space, and that's what ceremony does. And ceremony is all about reverence. So when you can truly have reverence for what you're doing, whether you're Sikh and you're, brushing your scriptures, if you are reading scriptures or whatever with the soft brush, or if you are, standing shoulder to shoulder like my Muslim brothers and sisters do, to signify community, and putting your forehead, this yogic pose, to put your forehead to the floor, to just demonstrate your humility and reverence for earth and for all living things, whether it's lighting the Shabbat candles in my Jewish tradition, which Jewish women all over the world are doing. So it's going around the clock. We're all saying the same prayer at once. It takes 5 minutes maybe, or it could take a minute. Yes, absolutely. And especially the ancient traditions that our indigenous people have carried on. And in circle. They brought us circle, as did our, ancient grandmothers brought us circle. The first forms of sitting, unearthed by archaeologists dating back to early Mesopotamia. Our communities were circle, and there were also no heads of the table. The chairs between the male and the female leaders were at the same height. So we have reverence for those symbols that just bring us deeper into who we are. And there's no right or wrong combination. So yes, they all bring me meaning.
Very beautiful. Can you describe a personal liminal moment that deeply changed you?
Yes, chapter 1. It's known as the What About the Dog is the title of the chapter. And in 1982, I found myself at a music festival cause concert called Peace Sunday. It was a no nukes rally and music festival. And 100,000 people gathered at the Rose Bowl, which many people know if you watch football, is in Pasadena, California, and with stadium seating. And everyone on the grass makes about a room for about 100,000 people, and it was packed. And early on in the day, we're all there for the music, right? At least I was 21 years old at the time, 1982, and I was there for the music. Probably there was something about this, perhaps being my Woodstock, but also being, I was just on the other side, born too late to be a hippie. And I was a frustrated hippie. So that spoke to me too. About 10 o'clock in the morning, before the program began, the MC came to the microphone and said, it's going to be a hot day. And somebody left their dog in the car. And if that's your dog in your car, go roll the window down. And, everybody kind of expressed boos and hushes, or, there's a hush around the crowd, but I couldn't unhear that. And so when I found a moment of silence between a speaker and the band, because that's how the day went, speaker band all the way through, and environmentalists and politicians and celebrities, Mike Farrell, Jane Fonda, Yoko Ono, these are all the speakers that peppered in between the bands. As soon as there was a space between speaker and band, I started shouting, "What about the dog?" I'm sitting stage left. They'll hear me for sure, over 100,000 people, but I realized I better chant, so it'll be repetitive, and they'll hear, "What about the dog?" Because I want to report back stat. And we got drowned out, but now my friends on the next time around joined me, and then by noon, and I was relentless in chanting. I started every chant until it took a life of its own. The entire stadium by noon was chanting, "What about the dog?" every moment they could in between the spaces. And I realized in that moment, oh, there's something here, but it was seated in me. I hadn't lived enough to know that was a moment for me until I started writing this story. And there's much more to that story. It even gets juicier. But it wasn't until about 4 o'clock that day I was walking in from the concession stand and I heard it. And I'm like, wait, I didn't start this. I started something, but it wasn't that round of chanting. And it went until the MC had to make an announcement that the dog is fine. And that was only so Mr. Stevie Wonder could get 5 minutes of silence to pray, because they probably knew he wouldn't. Anyway, that informed my psyche somewhere. My soul was rejoicing that finally there might be an outlet for my divine purpose, my sacred task here on this planet. And it did as soon as I started writing this book. And that was this first story that I realized, what was anchoring me there? And that was exactly the same time I heard the word liminal. And I'm like, okay, what was going on? And that's how I wrote that book. It wrote me.
What practical tools do you teach individuals or organizations to help them navigate liminal transitions?
Yeah, there's a series, there's a process, and I use a lot of my compassion and integrity training on secular ethic, compassionate, it's trauma-informed training, although I don't call that when I step into the room, but it does really tap into those spaces where we can start to question who we are. And we start with questioning assumptions. What assumptions do you carry through the day? And that's not something you can answer just the first time you hear it. You have to start paying attention and being willing to ask the question, and starting with certain practices that start creating different neural pathways in our mind. Every day, if I ask myself, why am I flipping this light switch before going out of the room? Why am I getting in my car and doing these things that I'm doing? Some regular thing that you do every single day, set a precedent of practice, set a practice for it. And before you know it, that'll start cultivating different awareness centers will start firing off. It's like, why do I believe that? Why do I think I have to buy that product? Why do I watch TV commercials that tell me I'll be thin and pretty and smart if I buy their product? That's not right. We start to become more aware when we start paying attention to the patterns that we carry on in our life and we don't even know it. So I'll just say that I start with questioning assumptions.
It's like taking yourself off autopilot, it sounds like.
It's exactly right. It's exactly right.
So how does liminality apply to larger scale societal changes such as climate, justice, cultural division?
I think every day, every one of us, including every system on the planet, experiences liminal spaces where there's a challenge and a choice, right? And we all contribute up and down the scale from what happens in the home to what happens in the White House or any parliament or wherever you are in the world. It all begins, like that gentleman from the United Nations says, it all begins here. That's how change happens. So we are in this incredible time. It's an incredible time to be alive right now. And I thank your listeners for tuning in to this conversation, because there's something in them that says, I have a role here to play. And that's true. We all have a role here to play in this. The world is speeding up too with technology and now AI. We don't know what to wrap our minds around. It's being manipulated in a lot of political spheres. Give them too much, give them too much. They won't know where to turn, and all this stuff can happen, right? Let's face it, that's what's happening, especially here in the United States. So how do we say, I'm stepping out of the noise, slowing down to the speed of I wonder what's going on, what's my role in it, and where do I find my center?
How can creatives and media makers use liminality to influence culture in positive ways?
Well, they do. Liminal was a word that is really well understood in the world of photography. It's thought of, if you look up the definition of liminal, you'll get a few different things. One would be, it's a place of transition. If you ask a photographer what it means, or an architect what it means, you'll get two more answers. To a photographer, these are artists, right? To a photographer, a liminal space is what you feel when you see a particular picture. Like you see a picture of a shipyard, for example. It immediately evokes a series. You already know exactly what that space is all around it and what it means to be there, what it smells like. You can probably almost get the taste of metal in your mouth. That's what liminal means to a photographer, right? The emotions, the feelings, that the space between your eyes seeing the picture and what it brings back to you, and what that means to you. To an architect, and there's a bigger field of discussion and even different language around this, is the space where they're creating movement, right? Whether they're creating a home with a stairwell, which is a transitionary place, right? Or a hallway, and how it's lived within, or a public park, or a outdoor shopping center, to see how do people move in this space? How do we create community in this space? How do we have the right lighting in these different places? So liminal really means what we do with the space that we've got.
How do you integrate the concept of seven generations thinking into your work?
Everything. What am I doing today that's going to affect 7 generations? Period. That's it.
Do you know where the term or the concept of the 7th generation comes from?
Comes from our indigenous elders. Yeah, it's definitely a construct of their cultures. Yeah, I think it's I do believe, and I am actually, now I sound like a colonizer. That's a question for an indigenous person, but that's where I learned it. And I do believe it transcends all traditions, all different nations.
All the amazing treasures one can find there, right?
Oh, yes. The earth-based traditions are all foundational to the patterns of the cosmos and to the dirt and what's below it and everything in between. The winged ones, the thin ones, four-legged, us two-legged, the trees, everything is part of the human family. Yeah.
What keeps you grounded as your work gains recognition and awards?
Oh, well, at first it was humility because I was getting a little full of myself. I was like, oh, well, look at me. Look what I can do. And I'm like, oh, no, there's so, and then I learned how much I didn't know. And every day I learned how much I don't know. So I just stand in that awe and wonder. And what keeps me grounded are my sisters, my circles. I thrive on being in women's circles, and I'm in all kinds of different circles having different conversations.
Well, it's that magic moment again. We need to take another station break, but please stay with us as Sandy and I explore cross-culture collaboration. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Can we transcend religious divides? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. We're continuing our discussion with Sande Hart. Sandy, how do you encourage collaboration across cultural, generational, or religious divides?
You know, my work has moved out of the community-based, interfaith community building. And what we've done before is bring people together. The question is, are they willing to sit at the table? And I will tell you that what I discovered after nearly 2 years of interfaith community building at the grassroots, where I'm in the room where it happened, I discovered it isn't religion that divides us. What it is nationalism and the rigid edges of religion that are manipulated, if you will, to have us believe that we are divided, right? For power, for my way, right? And last I looked, there were 8.15 billion people on the planet, but that was a while ago. And while there's a finite amount of faith traditions and definitely a smaller, more world religions collection of belief systems, there are infinite ways of living and being in that faith. So I am informed by all of those things we talked about, right? I have all these life experiences and all these different, I've learned from so many different perspectives and experiences that have happened to me. So how I'm going to address my faith tradition is going to be different than another Jewish person sitting right next to me, even if they were born on the same day as me. We have a different way of seeing the world and we have different life experiences. So yet, if your conversation is about the survival of a religion, which is due to nationalism or a form of manipulation that causes conflict, genocide, then that's a completely different room. That's a whole different conversation. Faith traditions, people who really, I've discovered that those who really understand their faith and it applies to them in a way of love and not fear, then it's an easy conversation to have. The difficult dialogues are when it's about conflict, war, division, lines in the sand.
So with your exposure to all sorts of different faith traditions and religions, have you found they have more in common than not?
Totally. The golden rule, which I mentioned a few times now, do unto others as they would have done unto you. Every faith tradition that the world religions, right? Those that are commonly known, from Sikhism to Islam to Judaism to Christianity to Baha'i to Buddhism and so on, including indigenous, they have a golden rule too, as well. The indigenous isn't necessarily spoken, and it's spelled out a little differently, actually. But they all have the same, unto thee I do as I would do unto myself, for an example, right? But they all, they just rearrange the words so that we all share that construct of I am my beloved and my beloved is mine, and you are my beloved.
What upcoming project initiative are you most excited about right now?
Yeah, the Global Women's Village is working on a global conference, and I'm referring to it as an unconference. It's a convening of women that was inspired because all those women tugging on our sleeves or grabbing my shoulders and saying, we need our own conference, we need our own convening, we need this in our own space, right? One thing I hadn't said yet about that configuration of building a village and what the greatest inspiration is that the world's religions, the rigid edges of world's religions, dating back to the written word, have been responsible for perpetuating systems of domination, otherwise known as patriarchy. And women contribute to that too. So this isn't a man-bashing moment. There's never a man-bashing moment in my world, but this is not one of them for sure. And so here in the middle of the world's religions, we put a village for women and men designed by women. There was something significant there. And that is what I think alchemized the air. So that's what we've got coming up. It's called Destiny Ignited. And you can stay tuned by joining our newsletter at globalwomensvillage.org. Yeah, it's coming November 2026. We're waiting for our first round of funding, so bring it on.
That is exciting.
Yeah.
What question would you ask your future self about the impact of your work?
What a great question. That's a good question to ask because it helps me chart my path. What have I learned? There it is. What have I learned? Boy, good question.
How can listeners begin to recognize liminal opportunities in their own daily lives?
Awareness. They're every day, between every breath, between a crisis and action, dilemma and choice, question and answer. There's never a moment. I mean, and there's never a moment we don't have these opportunities. A liminal space can be a hot second, or it can be 30 years. And I have some stories in there, that one of which demonstrates how things happen over a course of 30 years, that it did not dawn on me until I was writing it. So, like I said, or it wrote me. So yeah, it's that practice awareness with that little, those steps I gave you earlier.
It seems like, when you're talking about the liminal space, it's that space between, like you said, thought and action, et cetera, et cetera. How can we maximize that? How can we take advantage of it? Because we tend to just right over the top of it,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
never take that moment. How can we take advantage of it?
Well, we have full agency over what we do, right? I mean, we might be confined by it, or restricted by time. We have to get to work, but that doesn't mean we have to stop thinking about what we're stepping over, right? Stay with it. Go home and journal about it. You'll be surprised what comes out of the bottom of your pen, the end of your pen. I'll tell you, I've grabbed my head a few times with, where did that come from? So how do we make the most of it? And I love that question, because I'm all about making the most of everything. It's just like unpacking it. Unpack it. Keep asking yourself questions about it. Well, why do you think that is? Where did that come from? What prevented me from doing that in the first place? Yeah. Stay with it. Breathe into it. Yeah.
So when we're in one of those liminal spaces and we're getting new information, where is it coming from?
That's another great question. And I don't know that anybody knows. It can be spirit, it can be your womb, it could be your heart, it could be your soul. I have a perspective that it's my soul talking to me. And I also have the perspective that my soul's purpose is to be free. And it will only be free when I have learned all my lessons. And I'm on the other side, whenever that might be. So I don't know where we're going, but I know we're on our way. I say this all the time. I don't want to poison the water hole when I get there. What can I do to clean up my act? What can I do to look at the baggage I might be bringing with me? And I don't want to do that. What can I heal today? Yeah. And what happens is it just turns into this joyride. And I do a course on liminality, which I refer to it as a joyride into the liminality of your life. Yeah.
If you have a vision of what the world would look like if more of us take time in that in-between space, what would it be?
I think it would be a beloved community. I think it would be the beloved community where everyone takes what they need and there's enough for everyone, and the world works for everyone. It's important to say here that fear is a primary motivator in our life today. So how are we motivated from love? And to understand fear is nothing more than love of something we are protecting. So there really is no fear. It's just love that needs a little more attention.
Can fear exist in those liminal spaces?
It does exist in those liminal spaces until we realize it, until we love it back into wholeness, and that wholeness is love. We take it, we start pulling it apart, making it bite-sized. What am I really afraid of here? Where did that come from? Who taught me that? No victimizing here, but let's learn from it. Okay, I've got agency. Personal agency is the answer. Yeah.
Do you see victimization or self-victimization as a major problem in staying, keeping us from staying in that liminal space and getting the info there?
Yeah, it's really easy to blame someone, so we really don't have to take the time. There's a certain comfort level in just, whoa, it's me, and this happened to me, and man did this to woman, and and no, darling, no, we are the divine feminine embodied. We birth life. We are the healers and the nurturers, and the keepers of life and the keepers of tradition. And men, we need our men, and they contribute greatly.
For generations in the indigenous cultures, there were matriarchal societies. What do you see as the advantage of matriarchal society that we're missing?
Well, I think that I don't propose that we move into a matriarchal society, because that takes us back out of balance, right? We need a system of partnership, right? And there is an entire system of partnership, scaffolding. There's visit Dr. Rian Eisler, Eisler, or reach out to me, and I will put you in touch with that, and then direct you to what it means for a system of partnership to thrive, that she is the architect of. And we're also speaking this Friday on a call.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's that time, Sandy, when I have to ask you, what's your mission?
To future a new paradigm.
Simple as that.
Yeah. And to be a good mom and grandmother.
And being the elder, that's a challenge, isn't it?
It is. And that's why it's so important that we remember it. And then it's not a challenge anymore. Then you just know who you are.
Well, it's been absolutely wonderful having you on the show. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but Sandy, thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom.
It was a delight. Thank you so much for having me and asking such great questions.
My pleasure. Our thanks to Sande Hart for an inspiring and profoundly insightful conversation. Her work reminds us that real change doesn't happen in moments of certainty. It happens in the unknown, the unseen, and the unclaimed spaces between what is and what will be. To learn more about Sandy's book, upcoming programs, or the Global Women's Village, visit sandehart.com. Until next time, may you walk boldly through your own liminal spaces and discover the transformation waiting on the other side. As always, thank you for joining us on Mission Evolution with Gilda Wiyaka. For more information or to enjoy our past archived episodes, visit www.missionevolution.org. But please, be sure to join us right here next time, as this mission will continue, bringing information, resources, and support to our evolving world.